All right, everyone, we are going to get started. Again, my name is David Glassner, Superintendent of the Shaker City School District, and welcome and thank you for joining us for a facilities update webinar. As always, just a couple of logistics that I want to run through. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted to our website after we are complete so that folks who cannot join us live will be able to watch this after the fact. I will share some information just to update folks on information, and then we will open up the chat function for folks who want to ask questions or share any input or feedback. So I'm going to jump in. A lot of the information or the slide deck that I'm going to share may look familiar to folks who joined us about a month ago. There are some details that have been updated, and I'll talk through that a little bit, but some of this information may not be entirely new for folks who have joined us in the past. As always, if you have seen any one of my presentations in the past year or so, this information will probably look familiar to you. I am providing everyone with the most up-to-date information that I have, and it is tentative and can be subject to change as the information we receive changes. Our plans evolve as well. I'm going to start first by talking about our Ludlow renovation project, providing some updates on that, and then I will shift to talk a little bit more about the Woodbury project and other school buildings. So just in terms of some updates related to Ludlow, we do have our groundbreaking is set for next week, next Sunday, August 11th at 2 p.m. We encourage the community to come. We're very much looking forward to that ceremony. I will say, just to put out a little bit of a teaser here, at the groundbreaking, we're going to not just be breaking ground for the renovation project, we're also going to be unveiling the name of the new pre-K site at Ludlow. So we think that's going to be an exciting part of the groundbreaking event. I want to thank the members of the Ludlow Community Association who have really been a partner in helping us plan for the groundbreaking. The Ludlow Community Association picnic is taking place essentially immediately after the groundbreaking, starting at 3 o'clock on that day. We have been working with our architecture firm, the GPD Group, to finalize plans and receive the necessary approvals from the various city commissions and boards. We are going back to the Architecture Board of Review this Monday, August 5th. That meeting is virtual. We are getting close to a final design with the Architecture Board of Review with the ABR, but we do not expect the final design to be presented on August 5th. That will most likely take place at the subsequent ABR meeting on August 19th. We also continue to work with the Board of Zoning Appeals and City Planning Commission on necessary approvals. That meeting will be taking place on Tuesday, August 6th. That meeting is in person at 7 o'clock. Really, the areas of focus, I would say, for those various conversations include some final details related to the entrance of Ludlow. Also, we are working on refining some of the planning related to the pickup and drop-off site, the parking lot, the car turnaround area, the width of the sidewalk. All of those are things that we will be continuing to discuss with those various committees and commissions. We also, for folks who maybe have looked a little more closely at some of the details of the plans that we've submitted, you may have noticed that we have removed the community playground design that was in some of our initial submissions. The reason for that is because we are in the process of engaging with an independent arborist to do further study related to the trees on the site. And so we are going to be waiting for that process to be complete. We do anticipate going back to the Planning Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, for approvals related to a community playground. We also expect that the pre-K playground site that is currently on our submission may also be revised or refined. as we get more information from the arborist on the site study. So I just want to make it clear for everybody listening that right now the approvals that we're going to the different boards for really focus on the pre-K building and the immediate site related to ensuring that we can have a successful, effective, smooth, safe pre-K site. We do expect to go back to the city in the future with additional plans for playground space. Again, the pre-K playground space will likely be revised or refined, and we expect to add a community playground. We know that that is a very important part of this site and this process, and having renovated or new community playground is something that we're all very much looking forward to. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. I've kind of alluded to some of this already, but some of the things that we are prioritizing and taking into consideration as we plan for Ludlow are the pickup and drop-off needs of preschool families. I know I've mentioned this before, but we expect to have 200 to 300 students, children at the pre-K site starting next year. The vast majority of pre-K students do get dropped off and picked up by private vehicle, with a smaller number of students taking some type of school van or bus transportation. So really making sure that the pickup and drop off site meets the needs of preschool families and preschool learners is a key priority. I've mentioned the playgrounds already. We are also working towards ensuring that the renovated school building adheres to the Shaker Heights aesthetic and historical preservation. And where I mentioned the analysis that we're doing related to tree health and well-being. So just some updates that I wanted to share with folks related to Ludlow. We have been continuing to engage our community and make people aware of the renovation project and process that we're undertaking. I know I had the opportunity recently to attend the Ludlow Community Association meeting where we got to talk to community association members about the project and process. We've been attending different community events, block parties, other events that have been happening and will be happening. So that's been exciting to get to share information and hear from folks about things that they want to make sure exist on that site. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about Woodbury. So we are moving ahead with a timeline related to Woodbury. I shared this last time. This just gives folks kind of an idea of the different stages of the Woodbury design timeline. I also want to be clear, we do not yet have a finalized construction schedule. That is something that we're working very diligently at, but right now we anticipate that the schematic design phase will last till about the end of this calendar year. We'll then move into design development for about 6 to 8 months after that, and then move into construction design through December of 2025. So we are already making progress as it relates to the schematic design phase. We do have architects for Woodbury that include the GPT Group as well as RP Madison. Gilbane Construction is our construction firm, and the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission is the state agency that is supporting this project. We have already, just in terms of developing the schematic design for Woodbury, our architects have started meeting with building users, primarily teachers, other folks who may be involved in, for example, our music programming or our athletic programming. We are working closely with the City Recreation Department, and we expect that they will be a part of these meetings as well, since we know there are community uses that we anticipate being a priority for this building, particularly related to recreation. We are also in the process of really revising and refining an engagement plan as it relates to schematic design. I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. And here it is, actually. So just in terms of some engagement highlights, we have had a survey that has been out in our community for the past couple of months. Really, that gives people an opportunity to share some ideas and thoughts a little more higher level related to the Woodbury project. we've had about 500 responses for this survey, and it's open till the end of next week. And I strongly encourage people to complete the survey if you haven't already. It really gives the architects a sense of what are some priorities as we move forward with the Woodbury project. So some of the things that we've heard are priorities: flexible space, collaborative learning, historic preservation. Those are some of the things that we have heard are really important in the just getting some of that feedback. Again, I encourage folks to fill out that survey if you haven't already. Some other things that I want to highlight in 2 weeks from now, or a little more than 2 weeks from now, I'm getting my dates right, we will have an opportunity for people who live in the immediate Woodbury neighborhood to have a chance to meet the architects, to ask questions, learn more about the project. That's going to take place on August 16th. We have a letter that's going to hit people's mailboxes imminently that informs them about this opportunity. We know that people who live in the immediate Woodbury neighborhood may have specific questions or concerns, and we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to answer those questions and address those concerns. We also have a visioning session that will take place in the middle of September, most likely. We're working on finalizing a date. That visioning session really will help boil down to some more details. I know I mentioned the survey, that's a little more big picture. The visioning session will help us get to a little more details around some of the design options and ideas related to Woodbury. That visioning session will include representatives from kind of all the different stakeholder groups. So including students, teachers, staff, administrators, other employee groups, also community members, and other folks who have an interest in this project and process. So more information will be coming out about that soon. We're looking forward to having that visioning session. And around October, we expect that there will be larger opportunities for community members to weigh in on some initial schematic designs to identify things that they may like about the design or designs, things that they want to see changed or have other ideas about. So we expect that to take place most likely around October. I've mentioned this before. I want to highlight this again, that we have published an RFP to request assistance in the middle years school experience designing process. So this is related to, but it's not an architectural design process. It's really a process to help us identify what the learning experience of students and teachers and other people who visit the Woodbury building will be like on a day-to-day basis. So we expect to have more information out about that soon. I know we've gotten a number of different submissions. We're pretty excited to be able to partner with somebody who's experienced in this area. And I mentioned the opportunities for all stakeholders to review and provide feedback on initial Woodbury designs later this fall. One other thing I want to mention that is kind of hot off the presses, we are engaging with an additional consultant. Her name is Patty Choboy. She works with the Cobalt Group, really to help provide some additional support related to project management and engagement as we move forward with this process. We have certainly recognized the immense amount of work that is going into this facilities project, and getting somebody to help us, at least on a short-term basis, with communications, with engagement, with making sure that we're making and hitting all the right milestones and including all the right people, is something that we feel is a priority. So you may start either getting to see Ms. Choboy at upcoming meetings or events, or you may hear from her in other capacities. At this point, this is not a long-term engagement, I want to be clear, but we do expect to be working with her at least for the next few months to help determine what we may need support on moving forward after that. So wanted to make sure that that was something we shared today. With that, I will stop sharing my screen. I will open up the chat box for people to weigh in with questions or ideas. I also want to introduce our Assistant Director of Communications, Kristen Miller, who's joining me and who will help moderate and facilitate those chats and questions. Again, thank you everybody for joining, and happy to open up the floor.
Perfect. Well, while we wait for questions, I just wanted to put in a plug for next week's back to school barbecue on Wednesday, August 7th. Knock on wood, the weather is looking gorgeous for that day, maybe not as hot as we're currently experiencing. And we will have a facilities table at the event to help spread the news, spread word, and to get families that are maybe new to the district involved in the process as well. So that's going to be staffed by some of our facilities advisory committee members and other officials. And we're looking forward to that as a community event.
You know, one other thing I wanted to mention that I meant to mention, our middle school modular units. If you've passed by the middle school, you probably have seen work taking place on those modular units. They are almost ready for prime time. There are some final things that are happening just in terms of the installation of those modulars, literally as we speak. We do expect them to be ready for teachers the week of August 12th, so they can start moving stuff in. We know it's cutting it very close. We knew that when we started this process, but they will be ready for the start of the school year. And we're looking forward to welcoming students and teachers into the modular units. So just wanted to mention that. I had forgotten to mention that earlier.
Perfect. So if you have questions, if you could be sure to put them in the chat, that would be appreciated. Dr. Glasser, can you talk about which elementary schools will be renovated first or how those decisions will be made?
Sure, great question. We have not yet finalized. When I alluded to not having a finalized construction schedule, that is actually probably the piece that is what we're working on right now. We are looking at a number of different factors and considerations, including but not limited to. So one is just related to kind of geographic location and where things are. So for example, we know that Woodbury will be the first building renovated, of course, outside of Ludlow. There is some consideration that we should be looking at Onaway as being closer to the top of the list for elementary renovations because it's in the same campus area as Woodbury. And so a lot of the construction equipment, the traffic flow changes that may exist with Woodbury renovation, we can kind of continue that with doing Onaway right around that same time. We're also looking at building size, you know, to the extent possible, trying to renovate our larger buildings first. Helps just from a cost perspective because we expect costs generally go up. So things that we could do earlier on, bigger buildings that we do earlier on, the better. And of course, need. So, you know, are there buildings that have you know, greater needs as it comes in terms of renovations that we need to address sooner rather than later? Those are the things that we're considering. We do expect to have a construction schedule that we're able to publish in the near future and be able to identify which elementary schools we expect to renovate first. The other thing that I would mention related to the construction schedule is just that we know there are a lot of different factors that go into it. And so we appreciate everybody kind of recognizing that and that we're not going to be able to do everything all at once. Right. I knew there's one other thing with Fernway, renovating or adding an addition onto Fernway, I should say, is also part of developing construction schedule and just making sure that we can address that need as well.
Is it possible to do more than 2 elementary schools at one time, or is that the current plan?
We are looking into that possibility of doing more than 2 elementaries at once. There becomes a swing space need and capacity issue when we were looking at more than 2 elementary schools. So I would say it is not entirely off the table yet to do more than 2 elementary schools. I think at this point, where we sit today, it is more likely that we will go 2 elementary schools at a time. You know, I think this whole process is kind of a balancing act. We want to make sure that we are doing things obviously intentionally and strategically and trying to be to not disrupt things too much. We want students to have a comfortable learning experience, for teachers to have comfortable teaching experiences. We also know that that every amount of time where we can consolidate things, move things quicker, that generally has cost savings attached to it. And so we want to be aware of that as well. So like I said, doing more than 2 elementary schools, it's something that we are looking at. It's not entirely off the table. I think where we sit right now, it's probably not the most likely pathway at this point.
So the chat has raised the question of the parking lot at Ludlow and the relationship to the playground space.
Mhm.
That the enlarged parking lot constricts the playground space for the community playground. And the question is, can street parking be included in the design versus expanding the parking lot and that will then impact the play space?
Great question. So I want to be very clear here. We've heard from community members about the importance of maintaining as much green space as possible on the Ludlow site. We've also heard from community members about the importance of a community playground and trying to really maximize that type of space at the site. We also have had many conversations with our pre-K faculty and staff, as well as with our architecture firm and others, about the importance of having a safe and smooth drop-off and pickup area for pre-K. So I know there are folks who want us to have as few parking spots as possible, that we should be able to just have staff members park on the street. We do recognize that there needs to be some parking available. The parking spots that we have in the current design do not accommodate anywhere close to the number of staff we expect to have present. So street parking is absolutely a part of the design and the expectation. Really, we want to make sure that we have enough space for cars to be able to enter, to turn around and drop off their children, and buses and vans as well. So we do need the parking lot to be a certain size based on the relevant standards and safety considerations. We really feel strongly that the parking lot is kind of at the minimum size necessary to ensure a safe and smooth drop off. We also know that street parking, as I mentioned, will be a part of the consideration. Given the way pre-K drop off works, we expect that in the mornings and afternoons that the line for pickup and drop off will extend into the street, which reduces some of the parking available on the street, at least during those times. And also, we want to make sure that we're addressing potential traffic congestion at the same time. So there are lots of different considerations. In terms of the playground and the parking lot really, it's not just about the parking spaces, it's about the pickup and drop off area, is really related to ensuring a smooth and safe pre-K drop off and pickup. We do expect to have a community playground site that will not be impacted by the parking lot. I mean, the parking lot is what it is. We know there are some options for where the community playground can be. We do expect that we will likely need to have some variances approved by the city for the playground location. It's one of the variances that we're going for approval this upcoming planning commission meeting related to the distance of the fence from the street. I believe, I may get the numbers wrong, I think we're about 25 feet instead of 35 feet away from the street. Those are things that we're working with the city on. We do expect, I mentioned this before, we do expect to go back to the city at a later date with more detailed designs, both related to the pre-K playground space and the community playground space. I know that was a long answer to a relatively short question, but it is something that we're very much paying close attention to. And again, I just want to remind everybody, this building will be used as a pre-K site 5 days a week. And we need to make sure that the students and families who are coming to that pre-K site are able to come safely and smoothly. In addition to wanting to make sure that this remains a valuable community asset for folks who may be taking advantage of using the site, even if they don't have children in the school.
So we have a request and a question in the chat about when we're planning for cafeteria usage, about being able to incorporate into that planning the possible reuse of dishware, collecting these and food waste composting, those types of making sure that those types of procedures and considerations are included in, is that possible to include in the planning?
Great question. Let me just say a few things in terms of composting. We do expect to have composting at all of our elementary buildings starting this year. Uh, in terms of our older buildings for students, middle school and high school, we are working on figuring out ways to have composting at those buildings as well, but that may not exist at the beginning of this year. Certainly, the kinds of sustainability issues that this individual raised are on our priority list and on our radar. Members of our facilities advisory committee have connected us with some different firms and individuals who help school districts think about sustainability issues, some of them related to some of the questions that were raised. I expect that Patty Choboy also will help us kind of think through some of these sustainability questions. So that is something that we're looking at, and I expect to continue to be a part, not just of the facilities design process, but around some of our thinking related to kind of sustainability and operations moving forward.
Great, thank you. One question, will any of the construction impact our fall athletics?
Great question. We have already been working very closely with our athletic department and the city recreation department to ensure that the various needs related to athletics and recreation we can meet. So far, we are pretty confident that we can do so, knowing that there may be some changes to spaces that people use. I'll mention pool as an example. We have been able, or we're in the process of, but we're very close to finalizing different schedules related to who uses the middle school pool when, whether that's our school swim teams, whether it's the organization formerly known as Shaker Sharks. I think it's now called the North Coast. I'm going to mess up the name. So formerly known as Shaker Sharks, whether it's community members who want to use the pool, or whether it's the day-to-day use of the pool by students during their physical education classes. So we are working on that. Same with gym space, same with field space. There are some compromises that we're going to need to make over the course of this process. Some of that might happen immediately. Some of that might happen down the road. So we appreciate everybody's flexibility in this process. So far, we are able to meet the needs internally. We know districts where, you have to start using some fields outside of the district or some gym space outside of the district. We're not yet at that point, but it's definitely something that we may have to consider down the road.
Got it, thank you. Well, that is all, those are all the questions that we have in the chat. So I think we will wrap up for the day. We don't currently have a webinar scheduled. Is that correct, Dr. Glasner?
Yeah, I don't think we have one yet scheduled. I imagine, though, we will start looking for one to put most likely towards the beginning of September.
Mhm.
So
Sounds
we will
good,
make
yes.
sure that gets broadcast loudly and widely once we have the date finalized.
Yeah. We will put that out in our facilities update emails that all families and staff receive, as well as community members who have signed up to receive facilities information. We'll also include that in our e-news, which will be starting up back up with the new school year. And we will put that on our facilities update website. So perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon, and I hope to get to see folks at the back to school barbecue next week.
Yes, it'll be a great time.
All right. Thank you and have a great day.